Meet Sam. Sam has just been hired at your college to teach a course in animal husbandry. Sam is an experienced zookeeper, but teaching is new to him. Sam is a little overwhelmed. Sam attends a part-time orientation to prepare him for his teaching career. With his pet monkey in one hand and a pencil in the other, he is ready to learn. The facilitator, Wanda Learn, provides a brief explanation of a lesson planning model commonly used at your college for both face-to-face and online teaching. It is an example of a universal design for learning approach, which means that a lesson will be designed and paced to address students' diverse learning needs and styles. It will include repetition and diversity through active and engaged learning within an organized and consistent structure. Let's get started. This lesson planning model always starts with a learning outcome. This is a statement of what you want the students to know and be able to do by the end of the lesson, and all the content and activities are aligned to achieve the learning outcome. For example, Sam is teaching about the proper care and maintenance of animals in captivity. His outcome for one of his units may be: create feeding plans that will provide recommended nutritional requirements for land-based animals. After the lesson learning outcome is determined, it is time for the connection activity. The idea of a connection activity is, as the name suggests, to connect your students to the particular topics in your lesson. The important word here is activity. Students may enter your class disengaged, tired, and lacking focus. By starting with the connection activity, you are providing the students with an opportunity to refocus their energy, engage in the topic, and become present in your class. This is not just you telling the students about the lesson. It's the learner actually doing an activity that helps them to understand why the topic is important, how it connects to the rest of their course study, how it relates to their program, how they might use it in their own life and work after they leave the college. It's to motivate them to pay attention to the rest of the lesson. So it's called a connection activity, and there's one for each lesson. And this is step 1 in this lesson planning model. For example, Sam will start by teaching students about necessary nutritional requirements for monkeys, elephants, and wolves. He decided to connect the students to the material by asking them a very simple question that they could discuss with a partner. If a monkey ate only bananas, do you think they would meet all their nutritional requirements? Why or why not? Or he may show a brief video of the animals eating various types of food and ask the students to think about the differences in the animals' diets. So you've designed one connection activity for the lesson. The next thing is to break your lesson down into subtopics. It's important to only give students an amount of material that they can digest at once. You don't want to overwhelm them by delivering all of the content at once. You want them to have digestible chunks of it, or subtopics. You're going to break the content down. For each of the subtopics, you're going to start with a content activity. And again, as the activity title suggests, this is when the students learn the content, when the content is delivered to them, or you have them find the content, but just a piece of the content. There are multiple ways to deliver content, and of course, lecturing is one of them. There's nothing wrong with lecturing, as long as the length is kept short and you don't overwhelm the students with information. It could also be a reading, a multimedia piece, a guest speaker, a 10 to 15 minute lecture, or research on the internet or in other places. There are multiple ways to deliver content. Let's continue and see how Sam would break down the topic into subtopics. The first subtopic that Sam will teach the class is necessary nutrients for different classifications of animals. Sam lectures for 15 minutes on defining features of various nutrients with different animals while the students take notes and ask questions for clarification. This is one example of a content activity. Or, Sam could have asked the students to watch a video to gain the content. The key idea is that it's a small amount and it's alternated with the next type of activity, which is the practice activity. What we know about learning is that people have to do something with the material before they really understand it and are able to retain and use it. Just passively receiving content is not enough. People who are learning new things need to practice with that information. Now, if you're teaching a hands-on skill, this is probably really obvious. You explain or demonstrate how to do it, and then they practice it hands-on themselves. It is important to remember that first the content is delivered in some way, and then the learner has a chance to practice or do something with that material. This could be application or practice exercises, a worksheet or a workbook. It could be a case study, or it could be answering questions. Bottom line is, it needs to be some kind of activity that allows the students to apply, practice, and review what they've just learned. In this way, the students are receiving what we call formative feedback, or assessment for their learning. For example, Sam provides 15 minutes of lecture for his content activity, and now it is time for a practice activity. He asks students to pair up and complete a worksheet. The worksheet involves having students identify nutrients for monkeys, elephants, and wolves, and label accordingly. Sam takes this up with the class and moves on to his next content activity, feeding plans. Practice activities are essential for learning because they help students find out immediately whether they in fact understood and can apply and express the content that they've just learned. So in this way, students become more aware of their own learning and how to make study plans or other action plans if they find that in fact they can't apply or understand the material. If they're just sitting passively receiving it, they have no way of checking their understanding or checking their mastery as they go along. So for each of your subtopics, you deliver with a content activity, then you have the students do a practice activity. These don't have to take long. They can be 5 or 10 minutes. They don't have to be massive and complicated. This sequence repeats for every subtopic until you've completed all the material for the entire lesson. Again, this could take one class or it could take multiple classes. The idea is you keep repeating these activities until all the content from the lesson has been covered, and the students have had opportunities to practice all of these subtopics. You've broken the lesson down into discrete pieces. Now you want to put it all back together for the students. So step 4 is the summary activity. And whereas the subtopics were portions of the lesson learning outcome, the summary activity comes back and is related to the entire learning outcome for that lesson. The idea of the summary activity is synthesis. Having taken apart all of the content in the lesson, you're now going to put it back together for the students. So a synthesis for the students might be coming up with mock test questions, or it might be as a group putting together the grading rubric for the assessment that is going to be used to evaluate this particular lesson. Or it might be grading mock assignments as a class. The idea is that, again, this provides formative feedback to the students on their mastery of the entire lesson. And it precedes the actual graded activity. The graded activity comes after the summary activity. This is like a dry run or practice. It's taken up in class, it provides the formative feedback, or it's self-graded, or it's peer-graded, whatever. The idea is that it doesn't generate grades. That comes afterwards. However, the summary activity should be as similar to the eventual graded activity as possible. So the students, again, get a good idea of whether they are ready to be graded, whether they have in fact mastered the content and skills of the lesson. For example, Sam gives his students a case study scenario. He asks them to create a nutritional plan based on each individual animal's needs. This is very similar to the actual graded evaluation, where Sam will give his students 3 or 4 different scenarios, and each student must determine the best nutrition plan for each scenario during the graded evaluation. Looking at the entire thing now, let's quickly review. The lesson planning model starts with the learning outcome. For each lesson, you have one connection activity designed to connect the students to the content. Then, you break the content down into digestible chunks or subtopics. And for each of the subtopics, you design a content activity in which they learn the content for that part, and a practice activity during which they practice that content. Those 2 types of activities are repeated for all of the subtopics until all the content has been reviewed. Finally, you have one summary activity designed to synthesize the entire lesson and get the students ready for grading.